you could just clarify your question for me. I'm not entirely sure I get it.
Your mic is muted, so you just have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. During my own investigations into all of these COVID shots, was that the individual responses were so random that I looked into it deeply, that we were having our own personal responses based on our own individual DNA, which we know, unless you were an identical twin, you're going to have your own DNA, and therefore we're having our own responses because I live in Houston, so we've got a massive medical center here, and I looked into this deeply, and there was the responses were so random that I decided to look into DNA, and with that, I decided, and this is not medically verified, that the DNA responses had to be a key. And now, if you look at Francis Collins, he's the father of DNA, and that's why he seemed to rapidly and quickly retire last year. He has the answers for this. And I believe down the road, and that's why everyone had to sign off to say that it was, they were accepting personal responsibility, that this is where they're going to come down to it eventually. And, call me crazy if you like, that won't be the first time. But I do believe at some point, this is where they're going to say, well, you have your own DNA responded. And that's where the damage is coming from. And I do believe this is where we've got this mRNA, which says we could damage your system. And when we look at bioweapons, this could be the ultimate one eventually. And everybody has their own opinion as to whether it is or not. Got any thoughts on that?
Yes, so I do have some research that reflects sort of what you're getting into. The general idea behind this technology was created to utilize against militaristic forces for homogeneous societies, so specifically China and Russia. They're not a very diverse society. They're, predominantly Russian, predominantly Chinese, as opposed to American society, which has all these different people from all across the world with different DNA. So these new biological weapons, these new pathogens that are being created by the United States are far more dangerous for homogeneous societies, which is mostly the Eastern world, non-NATO countries, because all these NATO countries now are so diverse that they cannot be targeted by the same biological weapon because the DNA is so diverse amongst all their populace. So these biological weapons were created specifically to target Russian white males in the idea that whenever they release a biological weapon, it'll wipe out their militaristic force, and then that we can go in and take over a country without having to risk all of our lives and compromise all the infrastructure in the country. So it's a brilliant idea, but also evil and nefarious in every way possible and against all the international law. So I can speak to it in that sense from the militaristic standpoint, but I couldn't really comment on how the NIH plans on getting out of it. I'm not really concerned. They can utilize any sort of legalese or wordplay to try to downplay what they've done here. But at some point, a military force of some sort is going to have to step in to oversee what's gone on. As you said, Francis Collins, I can release my thread on the NIH emails. I hope everyone's familiar with the NIH emails that prove that all the top virologists and biologists in the world came to Fauci and Collins and put forth their analysis that, hey, we're not entirely sure this is a natural occurrence for COVID-19. We're pretty sure SARS-CoV-2 shows some instances via the furin cleavage site and the 19 spike protein, et cetera, that this was man-engineered. And then Fauci and Collins went through everything possible to cover that up to make sure it didn't get out. And the official story was it came naturally. So we have all of these instances of dishonesty and deceit that show they're covering up something, and all these kind of different storylines are leading back to the same spot of biological research.
It's funny because the day it came out, the first thing I said, when COVID was first announced, the first thing the DOJ did was post the arrest of Dr. Charles Lieber, who's a top virologist, chemical biologist at Harvard, who works specifically on nanotechnology type things for biology. But the funny thing is a lot of doctors stepped up right away and said, there's no way COVID started from zoonosis. They said there's absolutely no way this came from bats. the way they tried to explain it did from day one.
Correct.
What did they say? Pangolos?
Yeah, eventually
Pangolin.
they started getting into the pangolins, I believe. Pangolins. But yeah, so that's a real talking point that I've been trying to push, is that the fact that the rest of the world are interested in finding out the origins of COVID-19. This has been going on at the UN this entire time. All these different countries, Russia, China, India, Bangladesh, Ghana, Brazil, Mexico, Gabon. There's a few more that all said that they wanted to vote to look into the United States biological research that's going on globally, because we have over 330 biolabs worldwide that are sponsored by the United States, and they're concerned about what research is being conducted at these labs. And the United States just vetoes any sort of investigation that is proposed by the UN Security Council, because the United States is one of the big five, and you have to get all 5 votes in order to conduct an investigation. So they've just been vetoing any sort of advances for the rest of the world to look into this, and the rest of the world are curious about it. So it's very telling that the United States seems to be, or not only the United States, but NATO, all the NATO countries, don't seem interested in finding out where COVID came from, but the rest of the world really, really does. Which should be extremely telling, especially given what Spence just said pertaining to the massive effort to censor and silence any scientists that talked about the possibility of lab origin. Shows additional proof of deceit and dishonesty. So we have all of these proofs of deceit and dishonesty that at some point we have to start implying, if not inferring, intent, and start looking into why they continue to lie and why we continue to let it let it slide. So how many times can we catch them before somebody steps in and does something about it?
Okay, I think if we want to move on, I think we had phenomenology next, and then it was trash discourse, and then we can go to Julio, Mr. Sam, and Whiskey Tango.
Hi, thank you, Tara and Spence and Clandestine, for this great information and spreading the word on this. And I really appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. I have a quick 30-second comment before I ask a question, and that is, because our Justice Department is so just unjust, I think that our best bet for any kind of justice is through not like Congress and the DOJ, but it will be through like local district attorneys and brave attorneys generals on the state level. I think that more suits and investigations with that regard is probably our only real chance at this point. But my question is, with regard to with the Atlantic Council funding a lot of the censorship and also being involved with the war, we just had Boris Johnson there just a few days ago at our Capitol trying to rally even more support for this. And with the footage from that 1+1 media group that is tied to Burisma, and some of the videos, there's still a video on YouTube showing that first breach of the Capitol was filmed by the Ukrainians at 1+1 Media, and they heard Ukrainian, native language there as well. So I was just wondering if you've done any investigation into how January 6th is tied into this, and if you already mentioned that, I apologize.
I can say that I haven't done anything directly pertaining to January 6th and the Ukrainians, but I can speak pertaining to the deep state politicians and their connections to Ukrainians, their oligarchs, which would accompany any bit of illegality that goes on in those countries. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to infer that, if January 6th was some sort of false flag, as people want to call it, or a setup by Pelosi, since she's in control of the state police, if they were to conduct something like that, perhaps they would have used Ukrainians, but I don't have any proof of that. But I do have proof that the Democrat Party has a lot of connections to Ukraine.
Okay. Trash discourse, you are next.
Yeah, hey Spence. Hey Tara. Hey Clandestine. This is the first time you and I have spoken, I believe. So I ended up doing a marathon space this morning for like 7.5 hours, and I was starting on the Kolomoisky information, and how it connected with Poroshenko and the investigator, the prosecutor in Ukraine that Joe Biden had fired. And you had mentioned that you had not seen any direct connections with Privat Bank, and I agree, I haven't seen it either. The only thing that's related is that basically Joe Biden went to Ukraine to essentially apply pressure for both the Burisma investigation to be closed, and then, of course, as well to get the Privat Bank situation under control as well, to get that prosecutor out of there, obviously, is what was indicated in that phone call. And I know you're kind of going through a timeline here, so I didn't want to jump the shark or get ahead of anything, but I did a deep dive into the BlOLABS this morning with a lot of the information, some of your information as well, which was great work, and I wanted to commend you for it. It was fantastic work. You probably don't want to get into this yet, but just keep in mind as you're making it through the timeline, I would love to get back in to discuss where you see Battelle falling in this, because we know about Metabiota. And I was looking into Metabiota, and I know what they're doing now with the moving into that other organization, but GinkgoWorks, I believe. But I really would like to discuss Battelle if you have anything on that in the future, because I've been diving in, and the more I look, the darker it's getting, and the more connected it's getting. So maybe when you get to that point, I'd love to be able to chime back in, or if you have something quick you wanted to note, or if you're even looking into them at all yet.
So yeah, I'll be honest with you. I've dug into Battelle and I didn't find too much. I didn't do a crazy deep dive because we found the connection with Hunter Biden and Metabiota, and I've just been kind of focusing on getting the information out there. So if you have anything you want to build on, if you can find any more information about Battelle, please write a thread, make the information, send it over to me, share it with me. The reason why I'm putting all this out here is so people can build upon it, because the more amount of good eyes that we have on the subject, the more different avenues we can build off of it and different things we can find from it. So yeah, I'll be honest with you, I haven't dug into Battelle too much. So if you find anything, please send it my way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's connecting with like Atlantic Council and a lot of previous members, and who Battelle was when he founded the company, and all the ex-CIA and DOD that are actually working within the company. So it is kind of a big deal, and I'll get that over to you. So I just wanted to touch base on that. And I'm hoping you'll kind of go through that flow chart of where the funding comes from. So basically it starts with the 9 agencies, moves down through, and then it goes to the NGOs, the various different groups. Then it makes its way through all the way up through the pharmaceutical companies and back to the DNC. I'm sure you're going to cover that. But thanks for letting me talk, Tara.
I've got a little bit of a breaking tweet. This is from FX Hedge, and they are tweeting. It's at FX Hedgers. Chinese spy balloon being tracked over northern U.S. Pentagon weighing options on how to respond. NBC. It's got 24.3K views, 40 quote tweets. I'm going to go try to confirm that. That's pretty interesting considering what we're talking about right now.
Whoa, that's crazy. Are they spying on you? Are they spying on you guys? They're not spying on me.
They needed my YouTube shut down because I was hitting close to 5,000 subs.
I mean, if you guys want me to blow your mind, after I wrote the BlOLABS thread, I had multiple helicopter teams circling my house. I do live in Virginia, so it's not like I'm too far from military installations, but it was a little weird for them to be in a suburban area multiple times. And I do have a lot of cars driving by my house, and I live in a cul-de-sac, and they don't park. So if anybody's been spied on, it's probably me, to be quite honest.
That's so sketchy. Is it really? You should be live streaming your front, all of your entrances to your home. But go ahead, Spence. Go ahead.
Every news outlet is reporting on it right now. Every single one. So there's currently a Chinese spy balloon flying over the northern U.S., which is, I'm going to try to find the exact location. They say northern U.S. It could be Michigan. It could be, Wyoming or something like that. But I'll pull the, I guess we'll use NBC. I hate MSN.
Hey, Spence, it's Aaron. Hey, I just wanted to let you know I've got Dr. Li Ming. She'll be coming in about 5-10 minutes if you want to look for her. She said she'd talk about these goings-ons.
This is, absolutely. I will keep in. What? Say the name again, please.
Tara knows. It's Dr. Li Ming.
Oh, yeah, Dr. Li. Okay, I know who he is. Yep, absolutely. It's wild that we have a Chinese spy balloon flying over the northern U.S. right now. The Pentagon's tracking it. And then Fox and CNN just 2 days ago were blasting the 2025 China-America war. I think an Air Force general wrote a thesis on it. So the fact that this is happening right now is pretty wild.
56 minutes ago, The Guardian in London reported that they were debating about shooting it down. Instances of this kind of balloon activity have been observed previously over past several years, but once the balloon was detected, the US government has had to act immediately to protect the collection of sensitive information. Your information by any chance?
Well, I can speak pertaining to, we're going to go big picture for a second. We're going to go 40,000 feet. I don't know if you all saw at the end of one of my other threads, I inferred that World War III has already begun and that COVID-19 was a weapon that was released, which has sparked this response from Russia, which, according to Russia and China, is why they are in Ukraine, is to neutralize the United States and NATO from pressing upon their border with biological, chemical, and nuclear weapons. That's what they're accusing the United States of. We don't have, I guess, proof that that's happening. We have a lot of evidence to suggest that it very well could be, but that's why they're in Ukraine. So if we're under the assumption that Russia and China believe that the United States released a biological weapon, it's not crazy to think that, China and Russia are doing their best to surveil what's going on in the United States in preparations for war. Because at what point, they've tried to go to the UN, they've tried to go to everyone that they can to get some sort of investigation into these biological malfeasance that they're accusing the United States of, and they're not getting any traction. So they're going to be forced to look into other methods if they truly believe that all of their people are at risk of biological attack. So the more things you start seeing escalate with Russia and China, I wouldn't be surprised, because they're telling us that they're pissed off about our biological research, and the U.S. just continues to ignore them. So any transgressions that are held henceforth by Russia and China is because our administration has ignored all of the diplomatic efforts by those two countries.
Do you recommend that everybody in this room share stuff or stay still, or what would be the right course of action?
Share everything you can.
Yeah, Senator Trills just reposted it also, so we've got senators reposting it.
The balloon is in Montana.
It was confirmed over Montana, and NORAD did have a window to send Raptors up. It's almost like the administration is scared to shoot it down. Why would you just keep letting a spy balloon fly over and just shoot it down and be done, and then find out whose it is? It's crazy.
Yeah, because then you've got to confirm it and get the data from it. And
yeah, there's so many people that have to go into making that kind of decision. I know it's super easy to think shoot that thing down, but the implications that would result from, like as Aaron just said, shooting down that, if it's not Chinese, or even if it is Chinese, it's the other most powerful nuclear threat on the planet. So there's a lot of decisions that have to go in before they can do anything. But yeah, the fact that it was here in the first place is questionable. And the fact the media started to pick it up indicates that there's something they want us to see, and arguably something they're trying to hide.
Yeah, Ryder's confirmed it's PRC.
What was that, Nick?
Ryder has confirmed it is the People's Republic of China that own the balloon. And there's photographs of it as well in the Independent. I'll link it.
And what Clandestine just said, they want us to see this. If they didn't, we wouldn't be hearing about it in the MSM. That every MSM outlet, in my opinion, is nothing but a propaganda piece to try to sway our minds in a certain direction. And right now we're all going, ooh, man, we confirmed this with the MSM. China's, watching us. So something's definitely going on. This is ridiculous.
I mean,
yeah, I've never heard of the Aleutian Islands, but that's the way it came in and then came slowly through Canada.
Yeah, not to toot one's own horn, but I think we are all in agreement that this BlOLABS story is pretty big, and it's gotten pretty viral. So they could definitely use a distraction right now. So, I have no proof that this is a distraction from the BlOLABS story, but if they have a distraction, they're going to love anything that they can throw out there, especially given on top of the Biden document scandal escalating. So it could be nothing that they're trying to prop up, or, this could be an escalation. Like, Elon and Trump have been saying the war is escalating. And people forget that China and Russia are on the same team, and they're both pissed off at the United States. Specifically, though, they do clarify in their allegations that it's not against Trump, it's specific, or the people of the United States. It's against these Western oligarchs who are maintaining this biological network, and it's a criminal syndicate essentially. So Russia and China actually sound rather sane when talking about these things. It's just really, really disturbing to think that it's our government that might be the bad guys.
Well, and you know what party spent the last 4 years when Trump was president doing everything but just blaming Russia? I mean, they blamed Russia for everything, and come to find out that the Fusion GPS dossier was completely funded by the DNC and the Clintons. So not only have you increased tensions between two superpowers by lying in a political spectrum, you now have these ties to these biolabs like Clandestine is talking about, not to mention one of the biggest crypto scams in history unfolding. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, and to touch on that point about all of us being told for the past however many years that everything from Russia is Russian disinformation. I've been inferring that is not an accident. That around 2014, 2015, that's when the Russia stories, everything was Russia on CNN. MSNBC was Russia, Russia, Russia all day, every day, and everyone's like, we're not at war with Russia. What's the deal? Why do we care about Russia? That's because of 2014, 2015. That's when the beginning of the Ukrainian civil war kind of started taking off. And all the Russians wanted to get back in and take over that space to fight the deep state who were getting in there and trying to get their foothold with the oligarchs and the Ukrainian government. So that's when they started beginning to push their anti-Russia campaign, because they recognized that Russia recognized them as the threat. When I say them, I mean the deep state. So the reason why we've been told for years that everything Russia is disinformation is because they knew that one day this information was going to come out. These allegations from Russia were going to come out. So they tried to get in front of it early to make sure that by the time that Russia started putting forth the allegations about the deep state, that none of us are even willing to entertain anything Russia says. So yeah, I definitely think that was intentional.
And I should apologize. I should not be saying Chinese spy balloon. I should be classifying it as a CCP spy balloon, because there's a lot of Chinese citizens that obviously are in discourse with their government. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Why do we have a comic picture of a man with a load of balloons? There are lots of pictures of the balloon, and it doesn't look anything like that.
Oh, and the nest.
Is that funny? Is it the link at the top? It's
a meme.
Weird.
People have been making memes about the.
Already, my God, they're on it quick.
That's from the movie with the old man that flew off his house with the balloons.
Oh no, they'll get the Boris Johnson one in a harness. Jeez, that was funny.
Oh man. Let's see. Okay, back to hand. Sorry, breaking news just upset the whole room. Let's see. Who did I say? I think Julio. Okay, we'll just do it this way. Julio, Mr. Sam, I gotta click on the profile real quick. Mr. 11, and then Nick.
Yes. How is everyone doing? I see some familiar faces here. I'm very thankful to actually speak and to actually ask some questions. I'm a big fan of yours, Clandestine. I actually subscribe to your Substack, and I read your pieces to my mother, and we just absolutely love the information you put out. But given this opportunity, I have like 3 questions. They're pretty brief. I'm gonna basically ask them all 3, and then you could basically just break them apart. And if you need me to repeat a question, I can do so.
Julio, let me stop you. First of all, I recognize you. You comment on my stuff. I love you. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great.
I'm super excited to hear that you share this with your mom, that you enjoy the information. And it brings me a lot of joy to know that my information is getting out there and changing lives. But ask me one at a time. So ask me the first one, and then I'll address it, and I'll come back to you.
Okay, sounds good. So the regards to using biolabs, is military intervention or martial law a possibility, or that's going too much on the extreme? The first question.
So historically speaking, nobody has ever infringed upon the 1972 biological treaty, which all countries except 4 in the world have agreed to. There's never been an instance where the UN Security Council has enacted Articles 5 and 6 of that treaty. So it's never happened before. So we're in this unprecedented state where we don't really know who we're supposed to go to. By the book, we're supposed to do what Russia did, which is go to the UN Security Council, present their evidence that there needs to be an investigation by the UN Security Council. And then if there's enough evidence that they're supposed to move forward and look into it, and there's supposed to be a coalition of all the countries on the Security Council to look into it. So theoretically speaking, what should have happened is the Security Council, if they were not corrupt and all in on this scheme, they would have agreed, and all 5 of the countries would have gone in, if perhaps help from other countries as well, sending their own representatives to look into the situation together. But obviously there's so much corruption that we can't trust the UN to get anything done, and there's so many faulty fail-safes built into the system where the United States is essentially invulnerable to it. So, but the last time that we had any sort of Nuremberg type situation, Nuremberg, we had to have 4 different countries put forth a military judge, which had their own fellow judges as well. And they had 4 different teams. There was Russia, France, the UK, and the United States who prosecuted the Nazis. So that's the only thing that we really have to kind of build off of, which crimes of this severity would require the military to step in. As to how that comes to be, I have no idea. I got nothing for you.
Got it. My second question would be, have you actually spoke to any people in Congress? And if you have spoken to them, have they considered your information, like they've possibly thought of presenting it on record? And if so, just curious if any have listened to you.
Yes, so I did try to reach out to my congressman. He did not respond to me. My representative, I have spoken with actually Tulsi Gabbard via email. I reached out to her because immediately after my BlOLABS story went viral, she actually came on and supported it as well. She's like, hey, these BlOLABs are there, and Russia's not happy about it, and that's not a conspiracy theory. And she was really kind of the only one to put it out there. Followed by Tucker Carlson on Fox News. He did a big piece on it as well after Newland came out and admitted the labs were real. So I have talked to Tulsi Gabbard, but no current congressmen or congress members have listened to anything I've tried to say. I've really tried to get it in front of journalists. I've been in contact with various different big name not agencies, but I guess journalist companies that I'm not going to reveal. I don't want to put their stuff out there. But yeah, I have not gotten in contact with anybody in Congress.
And just one final question. I think you, in a sense, maybe have answered it in the first question that I had asked. But my final question would be, is there any branch in the military that could look into this? Or if anything, our military is compromised with regards to being, in a sense, guilty of corresponding to an act of basically having these BlOLABs? That would be my final question.
Yeah, so as it pertains to the military intelligence, they know about everything. They know about every single message that's been sent on the internet since 2006. It's all at the Hive via the NSA, which is controlled by U.S. military intelligence. So they know all this is going on, and I believe they have a plan that's in place, and I believe that the only reason why any of this information is getting out is due to someone's efforts. So if you believe the United States military is not compromised, one would think that they might be involved in it via PSYOPs. But I don't necessarily know for certain. I haven't spoken to anyone that would show me that they are compromised. But the fact that we've been waiting this long for any sort of intervention, if there are biological weapons being released in the public, a lot of people got the same question. We're not really sure where it's going.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your clandestine. God bless you, brother.
Of course, you as well, my friend.
All right. I think it was Mr. Sam.
Thank you for letting me come up here. And I wanted to ask you, do you know about Peter Daszak? What's his connection with all this metabiota?
I do not. Can you clarify on who the individual is for me?
Peter Daszak, he's like a bat researcher. He's been in like working for years and years, but he's connected with Eco Health Alliance, and they're like affiliated with Metabiota, and pretty much
Yeah,
there's
he's the director of Peter Daszak is the director of Eco Health Alliance. Andrew Huff, that we were talking about, clandestine, was a VP there.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. So then that individual would be implicated in the overall network that is being accused via Russian military. If you do want to reference that slide that I have in my viral thread, that'll be the 10th slide. If you go to any of my work in my Substack, I share it all the time. It's really the network and how all of this works. Starts with the ideologues, goes to the agencies, NGOs, BioLabs, pharma companies, and so forth. So yeah, Eco Health Alliance was one of the entities listed, I believe. I don't know if it was an executor or an NGO, but they are implicated in the biological accusations.
Yeah, they received the money from the NIH, which then went to fund the work that was done in the WIV, the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Got it. Correct. Yeah. So so they're involved in the money washing process. So the idea is the same as money laundering. It's to send it through as many hands as possible to make it more difficult to track. So it's not like Russia can go to these secret biolabs and there's a piece of paper that says, "Hey, Joe Biden funded this." You know, it goes through so many hands that it doesn't look like it came from these U.S. Western elites that are funding all of this via a plot, via their positions that they're manipulating this funding to their own privately owned biolabs in Ukraine.
But very quickly, I just have to add, I forgot that Peter Daszak, it is claimed in Andrew Huff's book, being the VP of the company, was taken on by the CIA in 2015 as a consultant to the CIA, a position which he retained, to Andrew Huff's knowledge, till today.
Yep, he's still on like Twitter and stuff. He was at the Bat Cave. He posted something weird like back at Ground Zero or something, or back to the nuclear something. He like an ominous post. Peter Daszak, like he has an account, and he's really into bats.
It's like a bad movie. Like all of this is this simulation. It's crazy. Like we just had Morbius come out, and this dude's out there. You know, is it massive clout chasing on the back of serious issues, or is it literally what everybody thinks it is?
Well, I do have a bit of information to add to that. If we've all seen V for Vendetta, this is essentially the plot to V for Vendetta, where they conducted this private biological research to release a biological weapon, and in the madness of the biological weapon, there was civil war. It was a color revolution with which the I forget what the chancellor took over and implemented an Orwellian system on top of it. And you know, this is a Hollywood movie that freaked out over. I think it was like a couple. I think it was like 10,000 people died from a bioweapon that was released. If COVID-19 is a bioweapon, it killed 6 million plus people allegedly. So like, so this is not just Hollywood. This is Hollywood times 6 million divided by 10,000. So this is the biggest, I guess, occurrence in arguably in human history. And the United States does not seem interested in where it came from, and the rest of the world is. So that should tell you pretty much everything you need to know about where it came from.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see who's next. Mr. 11, go ahead. Mr. 11, go ahead.
I'd like to yield. I'd like to yield to the person and then go after, please.
Sure, absolutely. Nick, you're up next, and then we're going to go to Moneypenny after you.
Thanks, Spence, and Clandestine, thanks for all the work you're doing. The threads are very detailed and they're excellent. I also write threads, so I know the time it takes for researching and editing and posting. It takes hours, days, weeks, so good job on those. I haven't gone through all of your work yet, but one of my questions is I know what you found in Ukraine. Have you gone past that to see how many biolabs we have in other countries? Have you found anything else? Like if we're doing this in Ukraine, it must be happening in other countries as well, right? Or
yes, so that is correct. So the United States has a biological network that spans pretty much the entire globe, where allegedly they're studying these different viruses that show up in these different biomes in different areas across the planet. So theoretically, it's good research to get ahead of these viruses and know how this stuff works, so we can create cures for it. But they've turned these biological labs into a pathogen trafficking system. So the reason why Ukraine is so much more important than the rest of them is, according to the Russian allegations, this is how the virus is trafficked to all these different labs that are owned by the United States worldwide. So they claim that in Ukraine is where the certain elements of the biological weapon, meaning the pathogen, are created, and then they are shipped to these different labs in different countries, specifically designed with biological weapons attached to vectors such as rats, bats, mice, monkeys, etc., are shipped to, say, for example, Nicaragua. There are biolabs in Nicaragua, and there have been Russian military presence in Nicaragua as well. So there are some connections there. And Russia actually just put forth a report pertaining to where they've moved or offshored a lot of this research going on in Ukraine. I believe, I want to say, to be correct here, Singapore, Thailand, there was another country in Africa, and Poland is where they've offshored a lot of the equipment they've been using. So Ukraine was the hub where they did most of the work, and then they would ship these different viruses, traffic viruses, to different parts of the world, hoping that they would get out to spread faster and also hide the location of where they're conducting the research, which was Ukraine.
Do these other countries where we have labs, do the governments there know about this? Or are these just secret programs are running?
A lot of these are official labs through the NIH. Like the US NIH has affiliation with a lot of these labs and their government agencies. So a lot of these are official laboratories, and they might not even be complicit or part of this scheme. They might be just unfortunate landing spots for these viruses that are being shipped to them that they don't know in the vectors. I mean, for the scientist that's picking up these rats that are getting shipped to them from Ukraine, they don't know that there's the possibility of a biological weapon being in that rat. They're just doing their job. So I don't necessarily know if they're implicated, but they are official laboratories that are through government agencies.
So
yeah, they should be BSL-4s. It's easy to find those. Just Google it. BSL-4. It's got to be a biosecurity level lab level 4.
So it's not Iraq manufacturing weapons of mass destruction. It's the United States. Fair to say?
I mean, I don't know if Iraq was. From what I've gathered, there's not enough evidence to prove that there was, and we have significant amount more evidence to prove that we have biological weapons being produced by the United States via the NIH, gain-of-function research, directed evolution research, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know for sure about the Iraq situation. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm 30 years old. I'm pretty young. I've only been for very little time.
I was being a little sarcastic.
I got you.
I'll say this. My brother was over first, and then I was over in 05 through 09, and not at one single point in time. And we may not have been privy to the information, but my brother was in the unit that was actually out when they captured Saddam. Never once did I hear anyone in the military community say anything about finding any weapons of mass destruction. In between, infantry and aviation and intelligence, soldiers talk when they're overseas. So I'll just say I never heard one instance of finding any weapons of mass destruction, and for a long time, which is exactly who they called, and it's more of a racial term which the military adopted, the chemical Ali. It was Saddam Hussein's top chemical scientist, where they were making the chemical weapons there. So I've never heard a single instance that they found anything. And real quick, I just want to say there is over 2,300 people in the space right now. If you can please tweet it out and comment in the comment section, the little purple bubble in the bottom right-hand corner of your phone. It's really important to help get the information out, you guys. Much appreciated. Moneypenny, you are up.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm sorry about that earlier.
Oh, okay, hold on. We'll go ahead, Mister. You can go ahead since we're coming back to you right now. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone up here. Tara, Spencer, Stein. Very grateful for this opportunity. No, they didn't find any weapons of mass destruction, but one of the rumors I've heard is that they did find giant spiders or tarantulas or creatures and stuff like that. Anyways,
there are giant. There's camel spiders get huge over there, and they're really aggressive. So, no, go ahead, Mister.
Yes, sir. So just a quick tip because I've had trouble. I was listening to Miss Tara Bull speak when I walked in, and that's why I prompted myself up because I wanted to share some tips on that when searching for something in real time as it's being scrubbed. Um, you want to use different browsers, right? Or and try them. Just try them all. Try the different ones and see which results, or that you might find the one that you slip through the cracks or whatever, or that has the right algorithm. What I don't know. I all I know is that I've had success before. Try different ones, different search engines. You want to set the parameters to as defined as you can, even if you can get down to the date and the year, right? There's some that you can filter by year. And that helps a lot if you know the period of time or even the exact date when the event in question that you're looking for or the article in question was written, stuff like that. That's the best that I can do as far as any tips on internet searching in these times, right? Because it's true, and I've had it happen to me when I'm looking for something that I know I was I had access to in the past, but now it's just not coming up in my search engine. Anyways, thank you all. My mind is blown. By the way, my family emigrated from Nicaragua, and right now I'm just fuming at the idea that my life over there or whatever what might have been is not to allow for these nefarious and clandestine activities to happen and that are putting people's lives and the whole world really in danger. These biolab research has to stop or be 100% transparent. If I can't walk into one of those labs and inspect it myself, I don't want it up. I'll shut it down. That's how I feel. Thank you. I'm dropping the mic.
Okay, I'm just going to ask too, since we're going in order with hands, if you're currently not speaking, please keep your mic muted. That way we don't get any backfeed while we have speakers up. Moneypenny, you did have your hand up a couple times and it dropped.
Yeah, I was just waiting for that guy to go before me.
Yep, go ahead. You have the floor.
Lovely, thank you. Just a quick update on the Chinese balloon. Joe Biden has been overridden by the Pentagon. This is from the Telegraph. Joe Biden proposed shooting down the balloon, but the Pentagon has opposed the move based on civilian casualties. That's the latest update. I've put it in the back channel for you.
I want to jump in real quick too.
Go for it.
General Flynn also put out a tweet 5 minutes ago, saying only a giant-sized bus-sized pool toy floating over the United States, big enough to carry an EMP. Nothing to see here. So this is getting traction, and General Flynn's pointing to it, who he's been pointing out a lot about the BlOLABS stuff too. I'm not saying they're connected, but when General Flynn's paying attention to it, it normally means something.
And that's a good point. I want to explain that this isn't just like a weather balloon size thing. These are like really big, not like Zeppelin size, but they're blimp size activity balloons. We used to have them flying around our bases. I mean, it's probably even bigger than the ones that we had flying around our bases for watching the what we call the wire, the last line outside of our base where it opens you up to the battlefield. So it's not just like a little balloon from the grocery store floating around.
And yeah, to be quite honest, we might have to start wrapping this up because I might have to start digging. I got to figure out what the hell's going.
Let's take a couple of hands. I think Tara said she wanted to do another space in an hour. Tara, is that correct? She left me all
No,
over
I'm
the
here.
weekend.
No, I'm here. I couldn't unlock my phone fast enough to respond, but yeah, it's happening at 5, so about 25 minutes. Project Veritas is going to be hosting a space, I think, regarding their latest videos that you were referencing. So I'll probably end this one and hop over there just so we don't miss anything there. And then I'm hoping that clandestine, that we can do this again, because I think this has been incredible and informative, and maybe we can make it sort of a regular thing with some of the threads that you put out there. I think hearing your explanation and people getting to come up and, you know, introduce themselves and add to it is essential.
Yeah, so I'm welcome to do it anytime you guys reach out. Just give me a little bit of heads up. This is my job, so as you might understand, I can't get a job in the real world because the entire left-wing media has smeared me as a Russian asset. So my only job is my my Substack subscriptions, which are, you know, donations. You can subscribe for free. Any payments a donation. But you know, I'm alive, so don't feel like you need to at a charity. I'm good, but if you'd like to, feel free to subscribe. But yeah, so my entire goal is to get this information out to everybody. So as long as you guys want to host me and more people we can get in here, and any more questions you guys can have for me, that's really what it's about. As long as we can clarify this with the public and spread awareness, maybe we can actually get some accountability.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I was in a space for about 3 hours with a Drastic virologist. For those that you don't know, Drastic is a group that was formed, undercover journalists, researchers, really just people in the know, who very early on in the pandemic, very, very early on, came together and began investigating everything and anything. One of the books that has been brought out about this whole thing that I call the Bible, and I think, was it you, Trash, that said it was your Bible as well, is a book written by Alina Chan, who's an American Chinese scientist, in conjunction with Matt Ridley, who's an award-winning British journalist, which to me, honestly, is the most spot-on guidance that you have at an early stage of this whole bloody thing if you're starting to look for answers. And it talks about whistleblowers that were disappeared, you know, Chinese, Taiwanese scientists who tried to get articles published in the Lancet that would, you know, tip people off as to what was going to happen, all that sort of stuff. And this fantastic book, with all the sort of information in it, comes a lot from this underground group, Drastic. And one of the virologists from that group, I was in a space with him 2 days ago. So I have a book full of all the explaining of gene sequencing and what was played with and this, that, and the other, which I'm obviously not going to go into in this space. But just to give some background, I've interviewed quite a few people on this. Dr. Richard Fleming, obviously Andrew G. Huff, who's former combat veteran, VP, EcoHealth Alliance from 2014 to 2016, who himself has been heavily followed, house raided, turned over. He's still being quite badly followed now. You may have seen the egg factory that went up. If you go and look at AG Huff, his profile, you'll find super amount of information on there. His book, What Really Happened in Wuhan, came out in early December. It was blocked into going to certain places. So over the last 3 weeks, and this may be one of the things that has accelerated all this stuff slightly, is that he has given huge amounts of documents openly that are DARPA, DOD, NIH, NIAID, all these bloody acronyms. They are in detail written in the book and then further discussed on Fox, all the Substacks and Rumbles and all the background things. All of it is available on his profile, so just go and have a look for that. But obviously super documents there that align completely with date, with person, with the emails that we've got now from Fauci in correspondence with the censorship part, the CDC, with Facebook, with all the, you know, all the guys involved in, and particularly look at dates, which is, for example, the public was told end of January, 31st of January, or whatever, 2020. Fauci's big meetings and emails all start 1st of February. The same with AG Huff's reports of when CIA and DARPA and DOD and, you know, everybody else started piling on the pressure. So just in terms of Ukraine specifically, a couple of things about Ukraine. Number one, it is the second largest country in the world for HIV infection. Huge, great big landmass, and in comparison, very small population. Great to test out bioweapons. When, after the Cold War, America and Russia were working together, it was Russian territory, not Ukraine. And from the reports and research I've seen, that was when the BlOLABS, several of them, were established. You've heard Fauci on record, and many people say he lies all the time. He obviously does. But when Fauci says it was not done in the labs in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, we can now look at it and see potential alternatives. Let me just read you something exactly, word for word, quickly, that Andrew G. Huff, who worked at EcoHealth Alliance, who put together the project with Peter Daszak, who we know is CIA, who were financed by the NIH and the NIAID, and in writing to create a precursor and a vaccine that would be aimed at humans. And they had to get this wording right correctly. In order to make a vaccine, you need a precursor virus. To be as lethal as possible, to be as infectious as possible. So why would it be done in China? This is Andrew G. Huff. China didn't need money. The money that we were going to give them, the £600,000 that they had loaned to us, I believe, meaning the American government, no, they wouldn't need that. They needed our advanced biotechnology. In biowarfare and bioterrorism, which I can't tell you about all of it, this is pre-Ukraine, we exchanged our knowledge so we could snoop on their labs. The gain of function was outlawed in the US in law. Remember, we're going back to Obama here. So legally, we had to go outside of China, and that's what we did. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that really pulls. It's really convenient to have an entire country that you own via proxy, which is what Obama.
Of stuff being moved around, people going into court for being caught with these vials, all that sort of stuff.
I will be most certain to check that out. I'll follow you, and I'll reach out via DM.
Thank you.
Pretty mind-blowing. I think Kevin was next, and then we'll go to Aaron, and then we'll go to CanCon. Yeah, Aaron, Kevin, Aaron, and CanCon. All right, go ahead, Kevin.
Thanks, Spence. I found this bombshell space from Tara Bull, the amazing Tara Bull. This is my first time meeting you, Spence, and Clandestine. Clandestine, I did the math on your earlier math problem, and it's Hollywood times 600 is what the math comes out to be.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, just a question. There's been speculation for decades that Nuremberg was sort of a smokescreen, and we ended up just adopting all of the Nazi scientists for NASA and all of that. So I don't know how much of that you believe, but if you do believe that, how confident are you that a Nuremberg 2.0 would actually get us the justice we're looking for stuff like this?
Well, yes, I have heard and done a lot of research pertaining to, the whole deals that were cut in the whole Nuremberg. That was a show trial, which, it was long before I was born, so I'm not entirely sure what happened in those days. But, the story as it was told, if, there were to be a seemingly non-corrupt military, international military tribunal, I think that would be a solution. But as it pertains to how Nuremberg went down, I would hope that it didn't go down like Nuremberg. But in order for something of this magnitude to get solved, it's really going to have to take a coalition between the three world superpowers, meaning China, Russia, and the United States, which kind of ties back into the whole Trump thing. He's saying, like, hey, I could solve this thing in 24 hours. And I keep saying that's because he doesn't have any assets that he's trying to protect in Ukraine. If Trump becomes president, he can be like, hey, you can have all this shit in Ukraine. It's not mine. What's the problem here? And then they look into it, and there's the biological weapons there. And then they can all come together and be like, hey, let's shut these down. And let's move forward and find a way to hold the people accountable. Because this wasn't the United States government that was doing this against Russia and China. These were bad elements within the United States government that were manipulating their positions and non-government organizations to do this off the books in their own country of Ukraine. So it's not like this is U.S. versus China versus Russia. These are bad actors within the government. Russia and China recognize this. So hopefully, if there were to be something like Nuremberg, it would not be corrupt and there would be accountability.
This is exactly what happens when you have politicians elected into your own government that are funded by outside entities like the World Economic Forum. It's absolutely insane that we have politicians accepting money from outside of the U.S. for campaign donations. It's incredible. And not to mention big tech, they will completely censor anybody on the opposing side. So, and honestly, it's a lot of military strategists have wrote books about this type of thing. It's, again, Hollywood times 600. It's just crazy. So, Aaron, go ahead, buddy.
Hey, man. Sorry, I got a small cold. I'm not going to die suddenly, but if you were in Iraq and Afghanistan and saw those balloons, the present threat detection system, I was involved in those and have a lot of understanding of them. The balloon that is up in Montana right now is probably the size of a C-130, and there's absolutely no way on Earth that wasn't detected from at least 300 or 400 miles out, and for it to have gotten to the point where it is was an order to overlook it.
Correct.
I've been ordered to overlook things myself in Kabul, and that is really being is that Montana is like the number one site for Minuteman and nuclear site. That is very, very disturbing to me, and for Biden not to shoot that down is disgusting, and the Department of Defense not taking action immediately, kind of tells you everything that you need to know. We need to know about this immediately. Every senator and congressman and everybody needs to jump on top of this and stay on top of it. That's all I've got.
Absolutely. Again, we've based our power grid on this green energy agenda push that's come out of nowhere since 2008, right? Our power grid has been compromised. Our healthcare system's been compromised. Our government's been compromised by donations from outside the U.S. for political campaigns. When they brought out the Russian hoax dossier, if that didn't raise enough red flags for everybody in the country, then we're just asleep at the wheel. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have a president whose son was addicted to drugs in a manner that compromised him to the rest of the world. He was smoking crack cocaine while he was working on the board of an energy company in Ukraine. I mean, common sense just has to take hold at some point in time.
Yeah,
okay.
I can follow up on that a little bit. For anybody who's seen The Godfather, it's starting to look more and more like our government is operated in that fashion, that these are just crime families who are manipulating things with their money and power. I mean, that's really the best way to put it. You know how Biden gets the state prosecutor fired in Ukraine. He's like, yeah, you're not going to get the money, and I'll kill you if you don't fire this prosecutor. So that's just how they're taking funding from all these different people. They're bought by whoever has the most money. I could beat this dead horse forever. I'm pretty sure everybody in this chat understands that pretty well. So I'll take any more questions, but I probably got to get out of here in about 5 minutes.
Okay, Con, go ahead.
Hey, Clandestine, appreciate you allowing me to jump in here. I'm a writer for the Gateway Pundit. I also host a couple podcasts over on Badlands Media Group, as well as my own. I would love to get you on to talk about this. I dove into this really heavy before the Tucker Carlson and Victoria Nuland thing. When you released your first major thread, the one that got you banned on Twitter the first time, we picked up on it a lot, and we're doing more research and all that into it. I had a couple questions for you. One, I was wondering if you did any more research. A lot of people are talking about metabiota because of the Biden relation right now, but I was wondering if you did any any investigation or research into Black and Veatch, and especially the Southern Research Institute, I believe is the name of it. One of the crazy things I found about them is back in 2004, they were American based. I think they're based out of Maryland, and they were caught sending live samples of anthrax across the country within the continental United States. So I was wondering first if you did any more research on that, and second, one of the things that you highlighted back in that original thread back in the day was potentially some of these bizarre outbreaks. I think it was either MERS or SARS that leaked into Russia and had some
biological weapons being released in Ukraine. Russia has put forth the allegations, and they go into great detail. So if you guys don't, I would highly suggest that you look into what the Russian Ministry of Defense are putting out, because they're putting in all these allegations and they document everything. So they have all the source material that accompanies it as well, and they've been accusing these different laboratories in Ukraine of leaking HIV, as I believe it was Nick who said earlier. Ukraine is fraught with all these different HIV and different sexually transmitted diseases, and Russia actually accused the labs of testing these human test subjects in Ukraine without their permission and them violating the Nuremberg Code. As was pertaining to your first question, I forgot what that was about. Can you go over that for me again?
Yeah, sure. It was about some of the contractors, the U.S. contractors that were affiliated with the labs, not just in Ukraine, but also I think in Armenia. I think they have a couple others. I think Georgia has a couple over there. If you had done any research specifically into like Black and Veatch and Southern Research.
Yes, so Black and Veatch is one of the key players that is listed by Russia again and again in their allegations. As you said, one of their most notorious was in Georgia, which the Georgia labs came into question a while back. I forget which year it was. I want to say it was around 2013, where they did like a big expose and they brought in the U.S. media and showed them inside the labs of Georgia. They're like, look, it's just an innocent lab. There's nothing going on here. And Russia actually accuses of the entire post-Soviet space all along their borderline and China's borderline are all these different labs, and they believe them to be conducting nefarious activity. So yeah, Black and Veatch is definitely a key player. I wouldn't say that I've done a complete deep dive into who the actual individuals who work there. So if you got more information, like I said, I'll follow you. I'll reach out to you about coming on the show.
Appreciate it, man.
That's interesting too, because I was in Iraq when MERS was going around, so we were all exposed to it. That was the same time that Russia had aggressions with Georgia. It's really interesting that this is all coming back full circle again.
So maybe these allegations were going on back then, and since the censorship is so heavy and we didn't really have social media to that capacity around those times, maybe those allegations were put forth and we didn't know about it. So it's definitely a good point that Russia has had these sort of aggressions with all these different post-Soviet space countries who are in bed with these U.S. politicians and deep state actors.
Absolutely.
Before we leave, could I just remind people to double check that they are following Clandestine? I just had to do that and refollow you. It seems as though it dropped off after you came back. And my good friend Kyle Becker was the one that originally connected the two of us. And I would like to thank Tara, because I keep looking at the headline and laughing at BlOLABS. I find it funny that Twitter allowed BlOLABS but didn't allow BioLabs. I'm wondering what the algorithm thinks of that one. But
they want U.S. social media to be as belligerent as possible, so that we're focused on bot videos instead of spy balloons.
Right. But they'll allow BlOLABS, but they won't allow BioLabs. I think that there's some irony in that one. But thank you very much for hosting. You've done a fantastic job.
That's why I came to the call. I saw BlOLABS. I was like, I got to get in here. All right. There was one other hand up. It dropped back down. So if you want to ask, did you say you got to get out of here, clandestine?
Well, here I'll let Maze come in and ask me some questions. And then after Maze, I'll have to go. Here, how do I let her in?
I was also going to say, I don't know if you've met Nick, name redacted yet, but he does do incredible digging into. He was the one who was researching how many FBI agents were hired at Google ex-FBI and all of that. So that's where that information I dropped earlier came from. So if you guys aren't following Nick, if you're not following Clandestine, if you're not following the people up here who resonate with you, who you want to hear more from, follow them. If later down the road you don't like whatever they have to say, you can always unfollow, but it's a nice gesture. Follow people who spend their time sharing information and are so dedicated to doing that. It's just a nice thing to do and show your support.
Thank you, Tara.
I was just so Clandestine, I back channeled you the screenshot of Black and Veatch. There's this whole paper that this gentleman wrote. I found it in academia that goes into great detail, and they describe you know, the events that happen. I think I'll send you the whole paper, and I can actually put it in the thread chat here for those that are interested. But it does go into a little bit of detail around Black and Veatch and their role in the whole thing. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Awesome. Thank you so much. But yeah, I'll go ahead and give my closing words. I just want to thank Tara Bull for hosting me and Spence for coming in here and help co-hosting. This is my first time really being in a space. I was in one last night, but that was more of just a bash party on me. So I appreciate everybody having me. If you guys want to do this more often, if you're interested in what I have to say or more questions about the BlOLABS, my main goal here is to get this in.
We all appreciate it. And I hope we can do this again. And with that, I think we're going to jump over in a couple minutes. Project Veritas will be starting their space. So I'll be over there listening in and maybe chiming in as well. So I hope to see you guys there. I hope you all got a lot of value from this conversation. Go ahead, Maze.
I was just going to plug in Clandestine's Substack. If you guys are really interested in his work or whatever, he does have a Substack. I just subscribed today. You know, I'm a huge fan, so I just want to throw that out there for you, Clandestine.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Make sure you guys do show your support, especially for people who, like he said, you know, it's a struggle to even go get work when you've been labeled a Russian spy. So it does help support these people in their mission to spread this information far and wide. So thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. We'll be back real soon. And I hope you all have an incredible weekend. Spend time with your families. Call someone you love and tell them that you love them. Don't let the day go by without telling people that you're thinking of them. It's something that I just have to say because I have my family on my mind. So make sure you tell someone, even if it's someone you haven't spoke to in a long time, they'll be more than happy to hear from you. Remind them, call them on the phone, let them hear your voice and tell them you love them. Get off Twitter for